Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is looking at the natal chart of Cardi B. And I confess that I don't know everything about Cardi B. I do know some basic background information on her life. I'm actually surprised that she's going to be 30 this year because I can't remember when she first came on my radar. It was only a few years ago. And I remember that I was online and I would keep getting these, I think it might have been on Twitter or something like that, and I would keep getting recommendations to follow her, or maybe it was Instagram. And it would irritate me because who is this person? I don't watch TV. I'm online a lot, but I still didn't really encounter her because of my own interests. And finally, maybe something else happened, and then I figured out that she was an aspiring rapper, or she had already had a hit by that time. And when I finally watched her do an interview, I was really entertained by her. And so I started watching more and more. And one of the things that I noticed was that she was very, very crude. I mean, it was funny, but it was like kind of off putting too at the same time because it was kind of like, wow, it was so, she was so vulgar, but it was so entertaining at the same time. It was like really outrageous. And I think about like when I was in my 20s and Madonna was all the rage, and how, or, late teens and early 20s, and Madonna was really big. I mean, huge in those days. And she was like the one who was controversial because of emphasizing sex and things like that. And I just think about Madonna back in the day, and this is like, and that was nothing compared to these young women who are emphasizing sexuality in a way that is really above and beyond. I did a chart analysis like this one about Doja Cat not too long ago, and that's on my channel if you want to check that one out. And I was exploring how she is a Libra sun sign, and I'm like, how can somebody like that be so sex centric? And same with Cardi B is a Libra. And it's like, what is up with these Libra women who are supposed to be kind of ethereal? Well, not ethereal, but above it all? And why are they into this stuff? And so I want to explore the same thing with Cardi B, although it's kind of almost like comical because Cardi B and Doja Cat are not in the same ballpark as far as I'm concerned. If I'm not mistaken, I think Doja Cat has a father who is in show business, maybe a musician or something. So I'm sure that she was raised in a higher socioeconomic level, and therefore has grown up with more exposure to the world than Cardi B has. So you could say it's like class difference between the two of them. And somebody wrote a really wonderful comment under my video on Doja Cat about Cardi B's background, about her being a stripper, and I thought it was very insightful. And basically, because Cardi B started out as a stripper, I'm sure she didn't want to do that for the rest of her life, but it was a step up from what she was doing. I remember hearing an interview where she said she was working in a grocery store or something, and I think she was making like $200 a week, and she just couldn't make it with that. And she knew it was a dead end. And this is a lot of times the decision that somebody in her position makes. It's like wanting more out of life. And even though There are some women and some men who would look at that decision and say that that's degrading. There's no amount of money that should make you do something like that. On an energetic level, you could say that the person believed that their life was more than that narrow reality that was in front of them, and so they were willing to do some of these things. So, in any case, I guess she also wanted to rap, and I don't know exactly how she became a rapper. My feeling, this is just my opinion, is that she is better as like a personality than a rapper. She's not somebody that I'm not really into rap music to begin with, but I prefer some other people. That's just my own preference. But I do think that she has something to offer in the entertainment industry. And so I'm looking at some of her personality traits here to see what's going on. So she has a sun in Libra, but she has the moon and the rising sign in Aries. And I think this is when I was talking about being crude. I think that this is where this is coming from, because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's a fire sign. It's a masculine sign. It's a very aggressive sign. It's a cardinal. So she's got a triple cardinal sign, sun, moon, and rising. Not to mention Mars is in Cancer, and that's cardinal as well. Cardinal signs are self-starters. So you can be born in the hood, or, somewhere you could say in a rural environment that is very economically depressed, somewhere where there aren't a lot of opportunities. And if you have a lot of inner planets in the cardinal modality, there's a good chance you're going to succeed, because you're not going to just allow your environment to dictate how, what your reality is. The cardinal signs are doers. So if one thing doesn't work, they're going to do something else. They're not going to sit there and talk about their plans, their dreams. They're going to do things. And when you do things, even if it doesn't work out, but you're still going to do something else, those kinds of people do succeed. They tend to really make it. You can be the most intelligent person, the most intuitive person, but if you're not actively doing stuff, you're probably going to just be spinning your wheels, because you're going to be just talking about things instead of doing them. So it's like being a hustler, and that's obviously what she was, and she was willing to do what it took to get where she was. Now, it's interesting that she was in what we would call the sex industry to some degree, being a stripper, and yet she has no planets in the eighth house. I feel that where this is coming from, meaning the influence of sex, is she's got Mercury in Scorpio and Venus in Scorpio. She has Mars in Cancer, which I don't associate with sex. Scorpio is, but the Aries energy is as well. Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars is the god of war, but it's also connected to the libido, the sex drive. Now, whether or not somebody, this is a really important point to make, is that just because a woman decides to become a stripper or a prostitute doesn't mean that she even likes sex. And I wonder if people understand this, or a porn star. There might be women who are addicted to sex, and then they, go into those fields, but they might not even like sex. But they know, they might be shrewd enough to know that there is money to be made. I personally feel that those inner planets that are in feminine signs, in the water signs, are especially astute at understanding human nature. And also, there's a connection with men, because Cardi B has a stellium concentration of planets in the 7th house of committed partnership. Now remember, she is a Libra, and she has this stellium in Libra's house, which is the 7th house. She has the sun there, she has Mercury, Venus, and Pluto. Three out of the 4 are personal planets in that house. What does that mean? It means that this is an area of great importance to her. And for a woman, we would look at the relationship with the father to determine what kind of attitude she may have towards men and towards relationships. This is an example of, I don't know the real deep details of her life, but I do know that her father was in her life, but I can't remember. I think he left the family or something, and she kind of has hard feelings towards him, but she still talks to him. I can't remember all the details of that. And so it goes without saying that in those circumstances, when a girl doesn't have a strong relationship with her father, that she's going to look to men to give her that attention. I'm talking about heterosexual relationships. Obviously, there might be some differences if it's same sex, but Cardi B is, I think she's pretty heterosexual, although I'm laughing because she, was doing some stuff with women, but that might have just been to, to get ratings. I don't know why what the deal is with that. But the point is that, she had this relationship with that guy, with that rapper, what's his name? Offset or Offset. I don't know what his name is, but I don't think she's with him anymore. I don't remember. But she has at least one child with him. And the thing is that, and I think that she had a lot of money. I don't know if she was giving him money at that time, but the thing that's important to understand is that these women can act really tough, but underneath have a lot of pain and emotional vulnerability. And Cardi B has her moon in the 1st house. Right? Let me see if it's in conjunction. Yes, it's a conjunction with the ascendant. So this is like a sub-influence of Cancer rising, even though her rising sign is Aries. And you will see sometimes, if you've ever watched an interview with her, if somebody asks her a question that's very sensitive to her, she can kind of let down that facade, and then it can be more emotional. And yeah, she definitely has that emotional side to her because I've seen it. And, because she has inner planets in water, Mercury's in Scorpio, Venus in Scorpio, Mars in Cancer. So, and then the moon, the ruler of Cancer, forming a conjunction with the ascendant in the 1st house. People like this are oftentimes very intuitive, but they're oftentimes very vulnerable. So it's like the little girl, they can give off that vibe of the little girl who's kind of scared and maybe even sometimes shy, although when you have Aries rising, chances are that's going to be overshadowed by Aries. But then she has, in her 10th house of career, she has Neptune and Uranus. And these 2 planets are intuitive and they form a conjunction. This is going to be more generational, with people born in her time. I just did a video on Neptune and Capricorn for the Generation Y, which I just found out is a millennial generation. I didn't know that was the same thing. But it covers a lot of Generation Y, Neptune and Capricorn. And so if you are in that generation, you might want to check out that video. It's on my channel. But one of the things that I touched upon about this is that these people can have a very idealistic view about money. They can dream about striking it rich. And, it's like I was in high school in the early 80s, right before the celebration of greed started. The movie Wall Street and greed is good and all of that, which was in the latter half of the 80s. And the celebration of materialism, which was a real theme of the 80s. And so when I see this, I think to myself, well, what is the difference between what I was subjected to and what this generation, Neptune and Capricorn, what does that mean? And I think the difference is that Neptune can be a deceiver. And so the person can think that this is the ticket that, by any means necessary, getting rich. Wasn't there a rap album called Get Rich or Die Trying or something? Um, and that kind of thing was really emphasized in the inner city. Um, and that whole scene, I mean, I'm sure that there were like people pulling the strings, from higher places trying to influence, um, young people to just have that kind of rampant materialism. Like that was the ultimate thing in life. And it's almost like making money your God. If you think of Neptune as a spiritual and the illusion, the deception of that, where did that lead people? What were they willing to do to get money? And, did that destroy their soul? I mean, of course, the soul can be indestructible. I mean that metaphorically, that's, kind of like taint them in that sense. So she came of age in this era that was full of that. But the flip side of Neptune and Capricorn is this idea that money is unspiritual. I think that there are two camps with um, the millennials, and some of them think that it's wrong to be materialistic. And they think that money is evil, not the root of all evil. I mean, that it is the root of all evil, not the love of money, but just money itself. And so she chose the route. She took the route of like, by any means necessary. And she was able to get to the top of the charts. I feel like with Neptune in the 10th house, I feel like there's some kind of sketchy, nebulous deception going on. I feel there's a manipulation going on. And I'm not going to get too much into that. I mean, about her getting to the top of the charts. And I have my own theories on why that happened, but that's not really for this video. But I do think that Neptune in the 10th house can sometimes be somebody who doesn't know, doesn't have any career plans or just kind of confused about what their status is in life. And, but it can also indicate having a career that is in maybe entertainment, because Neptune rules illusion, and anything that's show business is kind of like based on illusion and fantasy and things like that. And but I feel like with Uranus and Neptune, especially in conjunction in that 10th house, that this is somebody who could be a healer, who could actually, maybe she is very psychic, and she has that ability. Whether she uses it is a different story, because she is, doing this thing, but perhaps she could have always, gone that other route. And who knows, maybe she will at some point. A couple more things I want to point out here. In the fourth house, she has Mars here. Mars in Cancer is touchy, is emotionally touchy, is kind of quick to take offense, feels that they're always being attacked. And in the fourth house, it can indicate, in the worst case scenario, domestic violence. And it can be a very contentious, if it's not physically violent, there can be a lot of arguments. It can just be like a lot of disharmony. And so, it depends on the individual whether that bothers them. She is a Libra, and Libras tend to like harmony, but she has the Aries energy, so that can make her a little bit of a warrior herself. She might not shy away from a fight. And I think she did actually physically fight other girls, if I'm not mistaken. I think she had some physical fights. And I'm always shocked that there are women, like teenage girls and women, who physically fight one another. I just think that that's a lower vibration for men, let alone women. And it's weird that women are getting so aggressive in that masculine energy. That's the toxic masculinity. And why are women doing that? Well, they've been encouraged to be in their masculine to the exclusion of their feminine energy. And so, unfortunately, there tends to be extremes in the polarities, and there's not balance. So that's probably what's going on. But she does have squares to Mars from the sun and the moon to Mars. Moon square Mars can indicate an explosive temper. And her moon is in Aries, so she might really have a bad temper. With Mars, see the squares between Aries and Cancer. And the thing about with the Cancer is that the person feels attacked. The person feels like they have to defend themselves, defensiveness. Sun square Mars is somebody who has a chip on their shoulder. And you will find sometimes if somebody comes from a working class environment where they feel like they are devalued in society, and I can only speak for the American, because I live in the United States, for that kind of influence. But England is infamous for having a class system, but let's face it, anytime you live in a Western country, especially there, and Eastern too. India had a caste system. I don't know, the extent of it these days, but I guess it's part of the human condition. But this idea of feeling like you're looked upon as less than. And I'm not even talking about race or ethnicity or anything like that. I'm talking about just social standing, social class. If you listen to somebody speak and they have an accent that, you can tell is a working class accent. And this happens, I laugh when I hear people from England who have that kind of, what is it? I don't know if is it a Northern England or East London or something, maybe both, where they have a very working class accent. And then you hear the more posh accent coming from some English people, and you can tell the difference even if you've never been there. Same thing with the United States. Somebody with a rural accent, very thick accent, you're going to automatically think that they are less affluent than somebody who has a very sophisticated, kind of sounding voice. But some people, it doesn't bother them, but some people feel very touchy about it. And I think that Cardi B, one of the things that Cardi B said is that she was that she had enrolled in I think it was like a community college, and I don't know if she had like a 2-year degree. And people laughed at that. And I said, "What's so funny about that?" And she said that she really enjoyed going to school. She's a Libra. So Libra and even Aries as a fire sign, these are bright people. Whether or not they have perfect grammar, if they carry themselves in a classy way, it doesn't mean that they don't have the raw material to actually understand things. And I've heard her talk about certain concepts, and I think she, is intelligent in her own way, but she may be very defensive, feels like the underdog, like she has to prove herself. All those planets in the seventh house, by the way, can relate to public relations, and that can actually be a good thing for somebody who's trying to make it in show business, because especially with Venus, because that can charm people. Whether they have the kind of gracious demeanor or not is immaterial. If they have Venus there, there's going to be something very intriguing about them regardless. Pluto here can indicate attracting a controlling lover, a partner, or being that to another person. And Chiron in the fifth house can indicate some kind of issue with love that is very painful. Feeling like I think that is at the crux of a lot of this, because she has a square between Venus and Saturn, and that can be that feeling of deprivation, feeling unloved, and maybe especially by the father. Saturn can be the father. Another symbol of identity crisis is the Sun square Neptune. She has the Moon square Neptune too, but that's more on the emotional level. But the Sun square Neptune, this can be the person that doesn't really know who she is. And when you think about it, I think a lot of women who go into stripping do so because they don't know what else to do. It's kind of like a man going into the military. He may not have any desire to, even patriotism. He might just be doing it because there's nothing else to do. And that's not necessarily a good thing to, engage in something just because you don't feel like you have any other option. But people who have a lot of cardinal energy, they want to do something. Something is better than nothing to them. And the other thing I wanted to speak on was her square between the Sun and Uranus, which I also have. This can give a very unusual nature, which other people can pick up on, and it does make the person charismatic. But there's when there's a square, hard angle, square, or opposition, it can irritate people. I think especially the square. People can, they can't figure out this person, what they're about, because they're acting so, there's an inharmonious way that they're coming across to others that makes that other person kind of recoil, or I don't know. And that's because the Uranus represents being eccentric, being, a misfit. And the Sun is the person's, core nature, at least in this incarnation. And they're kind of clashing. And that certainly is true for Cardi B. And I think that makes people who have this hard angle misunderstood by others. But with her Sun in a square to Neptune, I think she misunderstands herself. And that identity crisis can lead to making bad choices sometimes, because the person is trying to throw things up against the wall and seeing if something sticks. So they're not really intentional sometimes with their behavior. And with the Moon in the first house, she might even be a bit vulnerable to influence from the outside world. the moon is very impressionable. And if there's like a strong personality that is trying to influence the person, they may, go that route, and it might not be something good. The person may lead them astray. So, anyway, we will see what. And another thing that I have in common with Cardi is Saturn, the 11th house, and that can be the person that has a hard time making friends. The 11th house is social interactions, and this person may. But it's interesting because it can indicate the collective or the masses. So, because Saturn is a delayed reaction, the person can be a late bloomer, and they can eventually. And I think she may have gotten. I don't know if she did. She was wasn't she on a reality show? But I wonder if she first came to people's attention on the internet, because the 11th house can be the internet, and that can be how the person makes it, because Saturn can be connected to career as well. But in any case, this is a person who may have only a few friends. They may enjoy the company of older people, but it's, to me, it can be sometimes feeling left out, feeling like you have a hard time fitting in with your peer group and that kind of thing. So with that Sun square Uranus, that can indicate somebody who's a little bit different. Now, even in her own environment, she may have been different in some way. But it may not be a bad thing because she became successful. Sometimes being different means that the person has more goals than other people, that they're living life. In a way, you could say she was living my life more intentionally because she wanted to better herself. Sometimes people live in an environment where everybody is kind of just surviving, and they're not thinking about being anything. They're just like, existing. And I think that she always had this vision for more, and that's why she eventually attained it. Okay, so that's what I have about her. If you would like me to look at your chart, you can click on the link below. I have double readings for special price called the Deep Dive and the Whole Enchilada, and there's a description about those, and I have single readings. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.